My name is Gabriella, and I'm 35 years old. I used to believe that love could conquer everything, but sitting here in this lawyer's office, my hands trembling as I held divorce papers, I realized how naive I had been. 5 years ago, when my daughter Emma was just 2 years old, my husband Tyler walked out on us without a word. No explanation, no goodbye to his little girl, who called him Daddy with such pure love. Now, after all this time of silence, he's back. Not with apologies or explanations, but with legal documents demanding custody of the daughter he abandoned. The man who once promised to love and protect our family now wants to take away the only thing I have left. My heart pounds as I think about how this all began. Before we dive into this story, I want to know where you're watching from. Are you at home, maybe during your lunch break, or perhaps listening while doing chores? Please hit that like button if you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted completely. And don't forget to subscribe, because what I'm about to share will show you that sometimes we're stronger than we ever imagined. This journey changed everything I thought I knew about love's strength and what it truly means to fight for your child. 8 years ago, I met Tyler at a small coffee shop downtown on a rainy Tuesday morning. I was running late for work at the dental clinic, where I was a dental hygienist, and he was there with his laptop working on some software project. When I accidentally bumped into his table, spilling coffee on his papers, instead of getting angry, he just laughed. That laugh was warm and genuine, the kind that makes you feel like everything will be okay. He was a software engineer, tall, with kind brown eyes that crinkled when he smiled. He had this way of making even the most ordinary conversation feel special. Our first date was at that same coffee shop a week later. Tyler arrived early, had already ordered my usual latte, and somehow remembered that I liked an extra shot of vanilla. We talked for hours about everything and nothing. He told me about his dreams of starting his own tech company, and I shared my secret hope of opening my own dental practice someday. He listened intently, asking thoughtful questions, making me feel like my dreams mattered to him too. The early days of our relationship felt like a fairy tale. Tyler would surprise me with breakfast in bed on Sunday mornings, pancakes shaped like hearts with fresh strawberries arranged just so. He'd drive across town to pick up my favorite Chinese takeout when I had a rough day at work. When I got the flu one winter, he took 3 days off work to take care of me, bringing me homemade soup and reading aloud from my favorite novels while I recovered. We moved in together after 8 months of dating. Tyler insisted on carrying all the heavy boxes himself, claiming he wanted to protect my back. Our little apartment became our sanctuary. He'd cook dinner while I graded continuing education courses for dental hygienists. We'd dance in the kitchen to old jazz records, his arms wrapped around my waist, as the music played softly in the background. When I told him I was pregnant with Emma, Tyler's reaction was pure joy. He picked me up and spun me around our tiny living room, both of us crying happy tears. That very weekend, he started converting our spare room into a nursery. He spent weeks researching the safest cribs, the most educational mobile toys, the perfect shade of yellow paint, since we wanted to keep the baby's gender a surprise. During my pregnancy, Tyler was everything I could have wanted in a partner. He'd massage my swollen feet every evening while we watched TV. He'd read parenting books aloud, practicing different voices for bedtime stories he planned to tell our baby. When I craved pickles and ice cream at 2 a.m, he'd drive to 3 different stores to find exactly the brands I wanted. The night Emma was born, Tyler held my hand through 18 hours of labor, never once leaving my side. When the doctor finally placed our daughter in Tyler's arms, tears streamed down his face. He whispered to her, "Daddy's here, little princess. I promise I'll protect you and your mama forever." In that moment, seeing him cradle our tiny daughter with such tenderness, I believed that promise with my whole heart. Those first few months of parenthood were challenging but beautiful. Tyler would take the midnight feedings so I could sleep, walking Emma around our apartment while humming lullabies. He learned how to change diapers faster than me, took pride in being able to soothe Emma's cries with a special rocking motion he'd invented. We were a team, supporting each other through the sleepless nights and celebrating every tiny milestone together. But somewhere around Emma's first birthday, something began to shift. Tyler started staying late at work, more often, claiming new projects demanded extra hours. When he came home, he seemed distant, distracted. The man who once couldn't wait to hold his daughter now seemed uncomfortable when Emma reached for him, as if he'd forgotten how to be a father. The changes in Tyler started subtly, like a slow leak in a tire that you don't notice until it's completely flat. He began complaining about the financial pressure of having a family. During dinner conversations that used to be filled with laughter and dreams, Tyler would bring up bills, daycare costs, and how much money we were spending on Emma's needs. He'd sigh heavily when Emma cried, rolling his eyes as if her basic needs were an inconvenience. Our first real argument happened when Emma was 18 months old. Tyler had come home from work in a foul mood, throwing his briefcase on the couch, where Emma was playing with her blocks. When she started crying from the loud noise instead of comforting her, Tyler snapped at me. "Can't you keep her quiet? I've had a long day and I need some peace." I was shocked. This was the same man who used to sing Emma to sleep every night. I started noticing Tyler texting someone late at night, his phone screen tilted away from me whenever I walked by. When I asked about it, he'd quickly put the phone away and say it was just work stuff. But work doesn't usually require texting at 11 p.m. on a Sunday night. The intimacy between us began to fade. Tyler would come to bed long after I was asleep and wake up before I opened my eyes. Emma sensed the tension too. She'd reach for Tyler when he came home, but he'd hand her back to me after just a few minutes, claiming he needed to shower or make important phone calls. I watched my daughter's confused expression when her father would brush past her without the hugs and kisses that used to be automatic. It broke my heart to see her little face fall when Tyler ignored her attempts to show him new toys or skills she'd learned. I tried everything to save our marriage. I cooked Tyler's favorite meals, wore the dress he'd once said made me look beautiful, initiated conversations about his work and interests. I suggested date nights, offered to get a babysitter so we could have time alone together. But Tyler seemed to see my efforts as pressure, rather than love. He'd eat dinner in silence, check his phone constantly during my attempts at conversation, and decline my suggestions with excuses about being too tired or too busy. The complaints became more frequent and more hurtful. Tyler accused me of letting myself go after the baby, of being too focused on Emma, and not enough on him. He said he felt trapped, like he'd lost his identity and freedom. When I pointed out that I'd sacrificed just as much, giving up my social life and career advancement to focus on our family, Tyler dismissed my feelings. "That's what mothers do," he said coldly, as if my sacrifices were expected, while his were unacceptable. One evening, I discovered Tyler had lied about working late. I'd called his office to see if he wanted me to bring him dinner, only to learn he'd left hours earlier. When he came home at midnight, smelling like perfume that wasn't mine, I confronted him. The truth came out in a cruel, matter-of-fact way that still haunts me. He'd been seeing someone else, a colleague named Brittany, who was 24 and childless. "She makes me feel like myself again," he said, as if I had been the one to take his identity away. The final confrontation happened on a cold February night when Emma was almost 2. Tyler came home late again and I was waiting in the living room, Emma finally asleep after hours of fussing. I told Tyler I knew about Brittany, that I'd seen the photos on his social media that he'd forgotten to hide from me. Instead of apologizing or trying to work things out, Tyler seemed relieved that the secret was out. "I need space, Gabriella. This isn't working anymore. I can't pretend to be happy in a life that feels like a prison." That night, Tyler packed his clothes while I stood in the doorway holding a sleeping Emma. He didn't even look at his daughter as he stuffed his belongings into suitcases. When I begged him to think about Emma, to consider what this would do to her, Tyler just shrugged. "She's young, she'll get over it, kids adapt." Those words cut deeper than any of his previous cruelties. As he walked out our front door, Emma stirred in my arms and mumbled "Dada" in her sleep. I held her tighter and whispered, "It's okay, baby, Mama's here." The morning after Tyler left felt like waking up in someone else's nightmare. Emma woke up at her usual time, 6:30 a.m., babbling happily and calling for Dada, as she always did. I had to carry her through our empty apartment, showing her that Tyler's belongings were gone, though she was too young to understand what that meant. When she kept pointing at the door and saying "Dada" with increasing confusion, I didn't know how to explain that her father had chosen to leave us both behind. For the first week, I called Tyler constantly. His phone went straight to voicemail after the third day, and I realized he'd blocked my number. I sent emails begging him to at least say goodbye to Emma properly, to explain his departure in a way a toddler might understand. His only response was a cold text message from a new number. "I need time to figure things out. Don't contact me again until I'm ready." The financial reality hit me immediately. Our joint bank account had been emptied except for $300. Tyler had been the primary breadwinner while I worked part-time, so I could be home with Emma more. Now facing rent, utilities, groceries, and daycare costs on my dental hygienist salary alone, I had to make impossible choices. I called my mother, who lived 2 states away, but she was dealing with my father's medical issues and couldn't help financially or practically. Emma's routine was completely disrupted. She'd always been a good sleeper, but now she woke up crying multiple times each night, calling for Tyler. During the day, she'd sit by the front door waiting for him to come home. When strangers approached us at the grocery store or park, Emma would hide behind my legs, no longer the confident, outgoing toddler she'd been when she felt secure in her father's love. I had to ask our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen, to watch Emma when my work schedule overlapped with daycare hours. Mrs. Chen was kind but spoke limited English, and I worried about the language barrier affecting Emma's development. I felt guilty leaving my daughter with someone who couldn't properly communicate with her, but I had no choice if I wanted to keep my job. The loneliness was overwhelming. During Emma's naps, I'd sit at our kitchen table and cry quietly, trying not to wake her. I'd replay conversations with Tyler, wondering what I could have done differently, what signs I'd missed that might have helped me save our marriage. The silence in our apartment was deafening after years of Tyler's presence, his laughter, his voice talking to Emma, or humming while he worked on his laptop. Then I met Sarah, our neighbor from across the hall. Sarah was a single mother too, raising her 4-year-old son, Jake, after her husband died in a car accident. She knocked on my door one evening when Emma was screaming with an ear infection, and I was clearly at my wit's end. Without being asked, Sarah took Emma from my arms and somehow calmed her down, while I gathered my thoughts enough to call the pediatrician. Sarah became my lifeline. She taught me practical things Tyler had always handled: how to unclog a drain, how to set up a budget spreadsheet, how to change a tire. She also taught me emotional survival skills, how to trust my instincts as a mother, how to find strength I didn't know I possessed, how to create joy for Emma even when I felt broken inside. With Sarah's support, I began to establish new routines for Emma and myself. Bedtime stories became our special time, just the two of us curled up on my bed with picture books. I learned to make Emma laugh with silly voices for different characters, discovering that I could be both mother and father when necessary. Weekend mornings became pancake time, with Emma standing on a chair next to me, helping to stir the batter and giggling when flour got on her nose. Gradually, Emma stopped asking for Tyler. Her vocabulary exploded as she began talking more, filling the silence he'd left behind with her sweet chatter about everything she saw and experienced. She learned to say "mama" clearly and would pat my face gently when she saw me looking sad, as if she understood that we were taking care of each other now. After 6 months of no contact from Tyler, no child support, no acknowledgement that he had a daughter who needed her father, I made the decision to file for divorce. Signing those papers felt like admitting failure, but also like choosing Emma's future over my past. I couldn't keep hoping Tyler would come back when Emma needed stability and security, more than she needed a father who didn't want to be present in her life. 3 years passed, and Emma and I settled into a life that felt surprisingly complete despite Tyler's absence. Emma had grown from a confused toddler into a bright, articulate 5-year-old who filled our apartment with laughter and questions about everything she encountered. She no longer mentioned Tyler, though sometimes I'd catch her watching other children with their fathers at the playground, with a wistful expression that broke my heart. My career had flourished during this time. With Tyler gone, I'd thrown myself into work with new determination. I completed additional training courses, earned certifications that led to a promotion to office manager at the dental clinic. Dr. Rodriguez, the practice owner, began trusting me with administrative duties that came with a significant salary increase. For the first time since Emma was born, I felt financially secure enough to think beyond just surviving paycheck to paycheck. Emma thrived in her new environment. She was naturally curious, always asking why clouds moved or how birds learned to fly. I enrolled her in a preschool program that emphasized creativity and independence. Her teachers told me she was academically advanced, but also showed remarkable emotional maturity for her age. At home, Emma would read stories to her stuffed animals using the same patient voice I used with her, showing me that she felt safe and loved, despite our unconventional family structure. Weekends became our adventure time. We'd explore local museums where Emma would spend hours studying dinosaur bones or planetarium shows. We'd have picnics in the park where Emma would collect interesting leaves and rocks to add to her nature collection on our windowsill. I taught her to ride a bicycle in the parking lot behind our building, running alongside her while she wobbled and squealed with delight when she finally managed to pedal without my hand steadying the seat. Sarah and her son Jake became like family to us. Our children played together constantly, and Sarah and I supported each other through single parenthood challenges that only another single mother could truly understand. We'd alternate cooking dinner for both families, share babysitting duties when one of us needed to work late, and spend holidays together creating new traditions that didn't depend on absent fathers. During Emma's 4th year, I met Daniel Rodriguez, Dr. Rodriguez's nephew, who had just completed his dental surgery residency. Daniel was quiet and thoughtful with gentle hands that made even nervous patients feel comfortable. Unlike Tyler, who had been charming and talkative from our first meeting, Daniel won me over slowly through consistent kindness and genuine interest in both Emma and me. Daniel never tried to replace Tyler or push himself into a father role with Emma. Instead, he let their relationship develop naturally. He'd bring Emma books about science and nature that matched her interests. When she showed him her rock collection, Daniel didn't just politely admire it like most adults might. He researched the types of stones she'd found and brought her a magnifying glass so she could examine the crystals more closely. Emma began calling Daniel Uncle Dan without any prompting from me. She'd excitedly tell him about her preschool activities when he'd stop by after work, and Daniel would listen with the same attention he gave his adult patients. When Emma learned to write her name, the first person she wanted to show besides me was Daniel. When she lost her first tooth, Daniel was the one who explained exactly what happens when permanent teeth grow in using terminology simple enough for a 5-year-old to understand. The relationship between Daniel and me developed slowly and carefully. We'd go on family-friendly dates, zoo visits, children's theater performances, ice skating lessons where Daniel patiently held both Emma and me up while we learned to glide across the ice. Daniel never pressured me for more than I was ready to give, understanding that my priority was always Emma's well-being and emotional security. On Emma's 7th birthday, we planned a small party with Sarah and Jake, a few of Emma's school friends, and Daniel. Emma had requested a butterfly theme, so we decorated our apartment with paper butterflies she'd made in art class. Daniel surprised her with a butterfly garden kit, complete with caterpillars that would eventually transform into monarch butterflies. Emma was enchanted by the idea of watching the transformation process, and Daniel promised to help her document each stage with photographs. As Emma blew out her 7 candles, making a wish she whispered was for more days like this one. I felt a contentment I'd never experienced before. Our life wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Emma was confident, loved, and surrounded by adults who prioritized her happiness. I had built a career, I was proud of friendships that sustained me, and the possibility of love with someone who respected the family Emma and I had created together. That evening, after Emma had fallen asleep, surrounded by new toys and wearing the butterfly wings Daniel had given her, I sat in our living room reflecting on how far we'd come. I'd stopped thinking about Tyler months ago, stopped wondering what he was doing or whether he ever thought about the daughter he'd abandoned. Our life was complete without him, and I felt grateful for the strength I'd discovered in myself, and the love that had grown from just Emma and me into something that now included Daniel and the extended family we'd chosen for ourselves. The phone call that shattered our peaceful existence came on a Wednesday evening in early March. Emma was at the kitchen table working on a puzzle while I prepared dinner, humming along to music playing from my phone. When the caller ID showed an unknown number, I almost didn't answer, assuming it was a telemarketer. Something made me pick up after the 4th ring. "Gabriella, it's Tyler." The voice I hadn't heard in 5 years sounded different, more mature, but also colder than I remembered. My hand immediately began shaking, and I had to sit down on the nearest chair. "Tyler, what do you want?" I managed to ask, glancing at Emma to make sure she hadn't heard me say his name. She was still focused on her puzzle, unaware that her biological father was on the other end of the line. "I want to see Emma. I have rights as her father, and it's time I exercise them." His tone was matter-of-fact, as if he were discussing a business arrangement rather than the daughter he'd walked away from when she was barely talking. "You have rights." I couldn't keep the anger out of my voice. "You disappeared for 5 years, Tyler. 5 years, no phone calls, no birthday cards, no child support. Emma doesn't even remember you." "That's not my fault," Tyler replied, and I could hear the defensive tone I remembered from our worst arguments. "You made it impossible for me to maintain a relationship with her. You changed your phone number, moved apartments. How was I supposed to stay in contact?" I was so shocked by his revisionist history that I couldn't speak for several seconds. I had never changed my phone number. We'd moved apartments once when the rent increased beyond what I could afford, but Tyler had never attempted to contact us through any channel. His accusations were completely false, but he stated them with such conviction that for a moment I wondered if I was misremembering something. Tyler, that's not true and you know it. You blocked my number. You never tried to reach out to Emma, not once in 5 years. I've grown up, Gabriella. I have a stable job now, a house, a family. Emma deserves to know her father, and she deserves to be part of a complete family unit. The way he said complete family unit made my blood run cold. What do you mean a family, Tyler? Emma has a family. She has me, and we're doing fine. I'm married now. My wife Ashley and I can provide Emma with things you can't. 2-parent household, financial security, siblings. Ashley's pregnant, and we want Emma to be part of our children's lives. The audacity of his statement left me speechless. He'd abandoned his first child, and now wanted to integrate her into the family he'd chosen to prioritize over us. As if Emma were a missing puzzle piece he could just slot into place whenever it became convenient for him. No, Tyler, absolutely not. Emma doesn't know you. You can't just appear after 5 years and expect to take her away from the only stable home she's ever known. I'm not asking for your permission, Gabriella. I'm informing you that I intend to pursue joint custody. My lawyer says I have an excellent case, especially given your circumstances. My circumstances? What's that supposed to mean? Single mother, limited income, no father figure for Emma. Ashley and I can offer her opportunities you simply can't provide. A good lawyer will see that clearly. The threat was unmistakable. Tyler wasn't calling to rebuild a relationship with Emma gradually and responsibly. He was calling to inform me that he planned to take my daughter away from me through the legal system. After hanging up the phone, I sat in my kitchen, trying to process what had just happened while Emma continued working on her puzzle, completely unaware that our world had just been turned upside down. 3 days after Tyler's phone call, a process server appeared at my door with legal documents. Emma was at school, which was fortunate, because I broke down crying as I read the custody petition. Tyler was requesting joint physical custody of Emma, claiming that I had deliberately interfered with his parental rights and that Emma would benefit from living part-time in his stable family environment. The legal papers painted a picture of Tyler as a reformed man who had overcome early life challenges to become a successful software consultant, earning 6 figures annually. They described his marriage to Ashley Chen, a kindergarten teacher, and their plans to provide Emma with educational opportunities, including private school tuition and extracurricular activities I couldn't afford on my salary. Most devastating was how the documents portrayed me. While not explicitly stating I was an unfit mother, the language suggested that Emma's current living situation was limited by my single-parent status and modest income. The petition requested that Emma spend alternate weeks at Tyler's house and argued that she needed male role models and sibling relationships for proper social development. I called in sick to work the next day and met with James Patterson, a family law attorney Sarah had recommended when her late husband's family tried to challenge her custody of Jake. James was in his 50s with kind eyes and a calm demeanor that immediately put me at ease despite the circumstances. Gabriella, I want you to understand something important, James said after reviewing Tyler's petition. Being a single mother is not a disadvantage in custody cases. Courts care about stability, consistency, and the child's best interests. You've been Emma's primary caregiver for her entire life. That carries significant weight. We spent 2 hours documenting Emma's life since Tyler left. I brought medical records showing I'd taken Emma to every pediatric appointment alone, school reports demonstrating her academic and social success, photographs from birthdays, holidays, and everyday moments that showed a happy, well-adjusted child, bank records proving I'd never received a penny of child support from Tyler. The fact that Tyler made no attempt to maintain contact or provide financial support significantly weakens his position, James explained. Courts don't look favorably on parents who abandon their responsibilities and then suddenly reappear demanding custody. But James also prepared me for the realities of family court. Tyler's income and married status would appeal to some judges who held traditional views about family structure. His lawyer would likely argue that Tyler had matured and changed, that he deserved a chance to be a father to Emma, and that denying him custody would be unfair to both Tyler and Emma. The most important thing is Emma's voice in this process, James said. At 7 years old, her preferences will be considered by the court. Judges will want to know how she feels about spending time with Tyler and potentially living in 2 different homes. That evening, I faced the impossible task of explaining the situation to Emma without frightening her or influencing her feelings about Tyler. I sat her down after dinner and gently told her that her biological father wanted to meet her and spend time with her. Emma's reaction was not what I expected. Instead of curiosity or excitement, she looked confused and slightly worried. "But I don't want a dad," she said simply. "I like our family the way it is. Why does he want to take me away from you?" I assured Emma that no one was going to take her away from me, though I wasn't certain I could keep that promise. I explained that Tyler wanted to be part of her life, and that a judge would help decide what was best for everyone. Emma listened solemnly, then asked if Uncle Dan would still be able to visit us if she had to go live with Tyler sometimes. The first supervised visit between Tyler and Emma took place at a family services center 2 weeks later. I drove Emma to the appointment, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. Emma was unusually quiet during the drive, and when we arrived at the building, she took my hand and refused to let go. Tyler was already waiting in the supervised visitation room with Ashley, a petite woman with long black hair who was visibly pregnant. Tyler looked older than I remembered, his hairline receding and new lines around his eyes. He dressed carefully for the meeting in khakis and a button-down shirt, clearly trying to project the image of a responsible father. When Emma saw Tyler, she immediately moved behind me, peering around my legs at the stranger who claimed to be her father. Tyler's face fell slightly, and I could see he'd expected Emma to recognize him or be excited to meet him. Ashley stepped forward with a bright smile, introducing herself and commenting on how pretty Emma was, but Emma just pressed closer to me. "Emma, this is Tyler, your biological father," I said gently. "He'd like to spend some time getting to know you." Tyler had brought an expensive tablet loaded with educational games and a large stuffed unicorn that probably cost more than I spent on groceries in a week. But Emma wasn't interested in the gifts. She answered his questions about school and her favorite activities with 1 or 2 word responses, while never letting go of my hand. The supervised visit lasted 2 hours, during which Tyler grew increasingly frustrated with Emma's lack of enthusiasm. He'd clearly expected her to warm up to him quickly, perhaps even be impressed by the gifts and promises of fun activities at his house. Instead, Emma spent most of the visit asking me when we could go home and whether Uncle Dan would be there for dinner as planned. When the social worker asked Emma privately how she felt about meeting Tyler, Emma was honest in the way only children can be. "He seems nice," she said, "but he's not my daddy. Uncle Dan reads me stories and knows that I don't like mushrooms on my pizza. This man doesn't know anything about me." The legal battle consumed the next 4 months of our lives. Tyler's attorney, a sharp woman in expensive suits, argued that Emma's reluctance to bond with Tyler was evidence of my alienating influence. She presented Tyler's financial records, his stable marriage, and his nice house in the suburbs as proof that he could provide Emma with a better life than I could offer. During depositions, Tyler painted himself as a young man who had made mistakes, but grown into someone worthy of being a father. He claimed that his departure from our marriage was due to my postpartum depression, making him feel unwelcome in his own home, a version of events so far from reality that I had to bite my tongue to keep from screaming. He'd practiced his testimony well, presenting himself as regretful, but determined to make amends. Ashley testified about their plans for Emma, describing the bedroom they'd prepared in their house and the private school they'd researched. She spoke about wanting to give Emma siblings and a stable family structure, emphasizing her background in early childhood education. Her testimony was designed to contrast their 2-parent household with my single mother status. My case rested on 7 years of documentation. Every doctor's appointment I'd attended alone, while Tyler was unreachable. Every school conference, every birthday party, every middle-of-the-night fever check. James presented evidence of my involvement in Emma's education, her extracurricular activities, her social development. We showed photos of Emma with Daniel, Sarah, and Jake, demonstrating that she wasn't lacking male role models or social connections. The most powerful testimony came from Emma's teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, who had worked with Emma for 2 years. She described Emma as well-adjusted, confident, and secure in her family relationships. Mrs. Rodriguez testified that Emma often spoke about her mother and Uncle Dan with obvious love and trust, and that she'd never once mentioned feeling sad about not having a father. Emma's pediatrician testified about her excellent health records and my consistent care throughout her life. Dr. Williams noted that children of single mothers aren't inherently disadvantaged when the primary parent is involved and attentive, which I clearly was. He emphasized that disrupting Emma's stable environment could actually be harmful to her emotional development. The court-appointed psychologist who evaluated our family situation spent weeks observing Emma in different settings. She watched Emma with me at home, noted our natural interactions, and Emma's obvious comfort and security with me. She also observed Emma during visits with Tyler, documenting how Emma remained polite but distant, showing no signs of attachment or desire for increased contact. Daniel testified as a character witness, describing his relationship with both Emma and me. He spoke about Emma's confidence and happiness, her academic achievements, and her strong social skills. When Tyler's lawyer tried to suggest that Daniel's presence in Emma's life was inappropriate or confusing, Daniel calmly explained that healthy children can have multiple caring adults in their lives without being confused about family roles. Sarah testified about witnessing my parenting for several years, describing specific examples of how I'd handled Emma's needs during illnesses, school problems, and normal childhood challenges. She spoke about Emma's close relationship with her son Jake, and how Emma had never expressed feeling incomplete or sad about her family structure. The most difficult part of the legal process was when Emma had to speak with the judge privately. Judge Martinez was known for being thorough and child-focused in custody cases, but I was terrified about what Emma might say or how Tyler's lawyer might have coached his visits with her to influence her perspective. Emma was in the judge's chambers for 30 minutes. When she emerged, she walked straight to me and climbed into my lap, something she rarely did anymore at 7 years old. Judge Martinez called for a recess, and James told me that whatever Emma had said, it seemed to have made an impression. Later, James learned from court staff that Emma had been remarkably articulate for her age. She'd told Judge Martinez that Tyler seemed like a nice person, but felt like a stranger to her. She'd explained that she already had a family she loved and didn't understand why Tyler wanted to take her away from the people who took care of her every day. Most importantly, Emma had asked Judge Martinez if the court could make Tyler stop trying to take her away from her home. She'd promised to be polite to Tyler during visits, if that's what adults thought was right, but she'd asked if she could please keep living with her mama and Uncle Dan, because that's where she felt safe and happy. The final hearing took place on a humid Thursday morning in late July. Emma was staying with Sarah and Jake, sparing her from having to be present for what we hoped would be the conclusion of this legal nightmare. I sat in the courtroom wearing the navy blue dress Daniel had helped me pick out, trying to project confidence I didn't feel, while Tyler and Ashley sat across the aisle, looking like the perfect family unit they'd worked so hard to portray. Judge Martinez entered the courtroom at exactly 9 a.m., and I could tell from her expression that she'd already made her decision. She reviewed the case facts methodically, acknowledging both sides' arguments before addressing the fundamental question of Emma's best interests. This court has carefully considered all testimony and evidence presented in this custody matter, Judge Martinez began. While Mr. Tyler Watson has demonstrated financial stability and expresses sincere desire to be part of his daughter's life, several factors weigh heavily in determining Emma's best interests. She cited Tyler's complete abandonment of Emma for 5 years, during which he made no attempts at contact and provided no financial support. She noted that children Emma's age form primary attachments early in life, and that disrupting these attachments without compelling reasons can cause psychological harm. Emma Watson has thrived in her current environment, Judge Martinez continued. She's academically successful, socially well-adjusted, and demonstrates strong emotional security with her primary caregiver. Ms. Watson has provided consistent loving care throughout Emma's life, creating stability that has clearly benefited the child's development. Tyler's face grew increasingly tense as Judge Martinez spoke. I could see Ashley reaching for his hand, both of them realizing that their carefully constructed case wasn't succeeding as they'd hoped. While this court recognizes that children can benefit from relationships with both biological parents, forcing a 7-year-old child into a custody arrangement against her clearly expressed preferences would not serve her best interests. Emma has articulated her feelings about her current family situation in language that demonstrates maturity and clear reasoning. Judge Martinez ruled that I would retain sole physical and legal custody of Emma. Tyler would be granted supervised visitation rights for 2 hours every other Saturday, with the possibility of increased visitation if Emma expressed interest in spending more time with him over the next year. The court also ordered Tyler to begin paying child support, though the amount was less than what I'd spent on legal fees. The relief I felt was so overwhelming that I started crying right there in the courtroom. James squeezed my shoulder while Tyler's lawyer gathered her papers with obvious frustration. Tyler himself looked stunned, as if he genuinely believed that his financial advantages and married status would outweigh 7 years of my consistent parenting. As we left the courthouse, Tyler approached me in the parking lot while Ashley waited by their car. For a moment, I thought he might apologize or acknowledge the pain he'd caused Emma and me. Instead, he said, "This isn't over, Gabriella. Emma deserves better than what you can give her." I looked at Tyler for what I knew would probably be the last time we'd speak directly, and I felt nothing but pity for him. Emma has everything she needs, Tyler. She has love, stability, and people who put her needs first. That's something you never learned how to give her. When I picked up Emma from Sarah's house that afternoon, she could tell from my face that the court case was over. "Do I have to go live with Tyler now?" she asked. And when I told her no, that she would stay with me, Emma hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. That evening, Daniel came over with Chinese takeout and Emma's favorite ice cream to celebrate. Emma sat between us on the couch, chattering about her day with Jake and showing Daniel a drawing she'd made of butterflies emerging from chrysalises. As I watched my daughter's animated face and listened to her laughter filling our living room, I realized that we'd not only survived Tyler's attempt to disrupt our lives, but emerged stronger than before. Emma attended a few supervised visits with Tyler over the following months, but she never warmed up to him. Tyler would arrive with expensive gifts and elaborate plans for activities, but Emma remained polite but distant, always asking when she could go home. Eventually, Tyler's visits became less frequent, and by Emma's 8th birthday, he'd stopped coming altogether. I never heard from Tyler again after that, though occasionally I wondered if he'd finally understood that being a parent requires more than DNA and good intentions. Emma never asked about him, and I never brought him up. She had a father figure in Daniel who'd earned that role through daily presence and unconditional love, not through biology or legal documents. The experience taught me that love isn't just a feeling, but a commitment expressed through action. Emma had always been loved completely, not because she had 2 biological parents under one roof, but because the people who chose to be part of her life put her well-being above their own convenience. Tyler had the opportunity to be her father, but chose to forfeit that privilege when he walked away from a crying toddler and never looked back. Now, 2 years after the custody battle ended, Emma is thriving in 4th grade, still collecting rocks and asking endless questions about how the world works. Daniel proposed to me last spring, and Emma helped him pick out the ring, insisting it should have sparkles like Mama's eyes when she's happy. We're planning a small wedding for next summer, and Emma will be my maid of honor, carrying a bouquet of the butterflies we've been raising together in the garden Daniel helped us plant. Sometimes people ask me if I ever regret not trying harder to maintain Emma's relationship with her biological father. The answer is always no. Emma learned early that family isn't defined by biology, but by commitment, love, and showing up every day. She's confident, compassionate, and secure, because she's always known exactly who she can count on, and who will be there for her no matter what challenges life brings. The strength I found during those dark months when Tyler tried to take Emma away from me came from a place I didn't know existed. I discovered that maternal love can move mountains, navigate legal systems, and stand up to anyone who threatens your child's well-being. Emma and I built something beautiful from the pieces Tyler left behind, and no court decision or custody battle could ever diminish what we created together. If you've made it this far in my story, I want to know what you think. Have you ever had to fight for what mattered most to you? Have you discovered strength you didn't know you possessed when someone you loved was threatened? Please leave a comment below sharing your thoughts or your own experiences with fighting for your family. Don't forget to hit that like button if this story resonated with you, and subscribe if you want to hear more stories about finding courage in difficult situations. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear that sometimes the family you choose and build is stronger than the family you're born into. Thank you for listening to my story and for supporting Emma and me through your kind words and encouragement. I hope that wherever you are in your own journey, you remember that you're stronger than you think, and love really can conquer anything when it's backed up by determination and courage. Until next time, take care of yourselves and the people who matter most to you.